right, so, the line is an authentic, real podcast, so we just lost power, and it's, there are the elements out here.
Yeah, especially on 20 acres of middle of nowheres.
Middle of nowhere, snow and ice. So I was just starting to get into history and talking about your heritage and where you come from. And the first time that I caught notice of you, you posted a photo of your, I believe, was it great-grandfather or your grandfather?
That was my grandfather.
Your grandfather, who was, if you look this up on the History Channel, and I mean, you can Google it too, he was a Skywalker, they called them.
Yep.
And these were Indians that did ironwork back in the day, like I want to say 20s and 30s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
So the whole thing with how the Mohawks came to be in ironwork and natives was there was a project in Montreal, and it was from Chateauguay to Montreal. It was a big bridge. The company came in, and they were doing construction, which they were doing ironwork at the time.
Yeah.
And they noticed that when they went home at the end of the day, that the natives in Chateauguay, where the town was, the village, would go up onto the bridge and walk the steel that they had set. And they were walking it, and they noticed that they're getting around like nobody's ever seen, like just with guys with no experience. So they went down into the village and asked them, like, hey, do you guys want to work? If yous are up here every day getting around with no issues. So that's where it started.
Wow.
So they had hired a bunch of men from the town to come and work. Unfortunately, what had happened was because back then, engineering, safety, it wasn't a big priority. There was a very big accident. And as they were getting ready to connect the bridge from either side, the weight was too great for what they had engineered it for. So they had put a stop to the construction of the bridge.
Wow.
One of the supers, I can't remember exactly what it was, but they overrode everyone and said, no, we're going to finish. And as they were finishing, the bridge collapsed and it trapped like everyone. And then the tide started coming up. So men were pretty much buried underneath the steel, the ones that didn't die from the fall. And whether they were native or French-Canadian, just the Canadian men, they ended up drowning.
Wow.
So what happened was the women of the town came together and said, the men can no longer work on one project together. And that's the story of when my people, my heritage, they started going to Boston, New York, Chicago, Toronto, Montreal. Like they started spreading out. And that's how they ended up going work down in New York City.
Wow.
And all over the U.S. and Canada.
Wow. What a tragedy and a sad story. I mean, the importance of us paying attention and taking into account safety in the work that we do, but also remembering the fact that some of the things that all of us take for granted, whether it's bridges we drive across or buildings that we live in, the sacrifice that is made for that, and those who've gone before us. That's when you say that you have ironwork in your blood, that actually carries some weight and some truth to it. You really do.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm third generation in my family. I'm the last of my family as my generation to get into the business.
Wow. Well, I mean, we are in New York, a pretty famous American state. And when we were making our journey up here, we had actually stopped by the World Trade Center, and New York and ironwork is just so commonplace. Like when I think of ironwork, I think of that famous picture of those guys taking lunch, where they're all sitting on the steel. And but in our travels, when we were on our way up here, we stopped at the 9/11 Memorial at the World Trade Center Plaza, and I was talking with you about this a little bit earlier, and it was just really striking to me, and I want to bring it up because I had a little bit of a I don't know if you want to call it an epiphany or an insight, but our creative director had said, hey, I want us to go here, and get some shots going through New York. And then he's like, have you ever been? And I was like, no. And he used to live here in New York, in Brooklyn. And he said, well, you have to go. And so we were there, and we began to go through the museum. And, I told you that I could remember where I was when I was an apprentice and I was at work. We were on coffee break when we were listening to Paul Harvey and hearing about the plane hitting the tower. And then while we're listening to the radio broadcast, the second plane hits the tower. And when I was walking through the memorial, all of those emotions, all of that reality, it just kind of came back. And I remembered where I was. I remember what I felt like. It was like I could taste it. And it was just so amazing and honoring and surreal to be there in that space, to see the steel, to see the concrete, and to be aware that so many people died there giving their lives, but then so much more. And I was, I honestly really struggled with the fact that I had forgotten, which listen, I'm saying this publicly. The big thing with 9/11 was never forget, and I had forgotten. And we're walking through the memorial, and I'm looking at hard hats, I'm looking at tools, I'm looking at pieces of paper. And then I'm seeing the people that after this tragedy that came together, the first responders and the tradesmen and the people who came and began to build back.
Right.
And to clear the rubble. While I was walking through, someone saw on my Instagram that I was at the 9/11 memorial, and he texted me. He goes, hey, there's this demolition company, I believe it was Griffin out of South Carolina, and there's a demolition company that was a big part of coming up and helping clear the rubble and helping do that. And it's like, we talk about how the trades matter, and we talk about lifting the view of the skilled trades, and we talk about being aware. And I began to become aware of the fact that, when I turn on my computer or I go home at night and I turn on the lights, I've forgotten about the men and women who've done that work, that make that work. And you talk about your grandfather, and I too, my grandfather and my uncles, they all worked for, a pretty big utility company. They worked on line crews. They were linemen and groundmen, and they worked in storms. And it's like the work that they did is why I can live the life that I live. But I've forgotten about that work. Yeah. And I think as a country and a culture, we've forgotten about the work, whether it's iron workers, whether it's plumbers, whether it's pipe fitters, whether it's electricians or carpenters. We forget what it is that has been done. And that's why I'm sitting out here in the snow with the cold plunge guy when you're off work. We're sitting out here in the cold, in the wilderness, and we're talking about this stuff because you need to remember. You not only need to remember, but you need to be aware. If you're watching this or listening to this, you're on the internet, and there are men and women who are investing their lives. And like your heritage, there are men and women who have sacrificed their lives because we're learning this as we go. And it's like, it was really impactful to me to be there and to see that stuff and just to realize that I too have forgotten. And so I just want to challenge us all to be remembering what it is that is done by those that we so underappreciate the work that they do.
Absolutely. Just the day-to-day, we forget when we turn power on, when we turn a tap on to wash our hands. I know I'm an iron worker, but still, there's, as you know, the trades are vast and everything. Just for day-to-day, just to make our days more convenient. Yeah. Day-to-days, roads, bridges, power, water, sewage.
Yeah.
The list can go on and on when it comes to the trades and blue collar.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I just think that we do take it for granted, and we don't appreciate it, and we can't do anything without it.
No.
No. We can't. Yeah. And I just think that's important to highlight. And sitting here and talking with you and hearing about your heritage, your history, and feeling a connection, knowing that even my ancestry, which is yours is pretty cool, man. Yours is pretty cool. But knowing the men and women that sacrificed and wanting to honor that, just like that memorial at 9/11 was so impressive. The way that they honored the people that died, the way that they honored the people that came, I mean, and the fact of the things that stood, we take that for granted. And I mean, I could spend an entire podcast talking about that, but tell me a little bit more about your story. So you got into the trades, it was in your family, and so and now you've kind of even made an impression on social media. I want to call it something else to make it sound cooler, because I just don't like that name. But on the internet, you've made a name for yourself,
right.
And people have gotten impressed with who you are,
right,
to the point that now when you go onto a job site, you talked about this, people are like, he's the picture guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I pretty much got. I've always had big shoes to fill. I found in ironwork.
I would think so with your history.
With my history, and not only my grandfather, but my uncles as well, especially in New York City, their names carry a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And like you said, you were at 9/11. I had both my uncles at 9/11 when it happened for the cleanup, and I had one uncle for the rebuild.
Wow.
So that site holds to my family as well.
Wow.
But going back to me, sorry. Going back to that, during that whole rebuilding, there was Discovery Channel had a lot of documentaries about 9/11, conspiracies to rebuild, all kinds. And my uncle was showcased in one of those. His name on the show was Peter J. His name's Peter Jacobs. He's a Mohawk iron worker. Well, he's my uncle, so he's just like me. But so a lot of people knew who he was, and
Right.
There's been shows throughout the years with a lot of my family here and there, little snippets. So I always felt I had a big shadow I was in.
Yeah.
And then when I came in, it was like, those are your uncles and you need to live up or be better than them. And I was always, when you're young, it's kind of like, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
And then I ended up leaving New York City and traveling to Boston to work. Because after the pandemic, our line of work kind of slowed down with ironwork. So a lot of work was happening in Boston. I went out there, and that's kind of where I was able to discover me as my own, building my own name.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of people out there knew who my family was because of those shows.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of became, I don't even like to say the word, internet famous or however it is, but I became, quite known in the industry in construction, period.
Yeah.
So I was taking videos, taking pictures on the job, and originally my whole Instagram was just personal.
Right.
And then I started noticing, I would post a reel of me in my ice bath.
Yeah.
20 views, 30 views, whatever. And then the next day I'd post something, the guy's working, or, take a self picture or anything. And I'd post that and it was 1,000 views, 10,000, a million. And I'm like, oh, so the people want, not ice bath guy, they want construction. And that's kind of where I found my niche in the internet. And I've started to just, I guess, I don't want to say capitalize on it, but I took advantage of the position I was in at the time, especially with all the traffic my Instagram page was getting.
Yeah.
And I kind of just started pumping out content.
Yeah.
Because I was taking a lot of content, and a lot of people would be like, well, how are you taking content and taking pictures and videos when you're supposed to be working?
Yeah.
And the beauty, I would say, in ironworking especially, is, so what I was doing was I was hooking the steel up to the crane, and then they would take it away. After that was done, I would then, as the piece is taken away, I'd have my phone out, take a couple pictures, boom, go on, do my work. I was getting my work done, and then on top of it, I was still taking pictures and all that. And no one ever really said anything to me. I mean, there was never any guys, especially older guys being like, you need to get off your phone, or what are you doing?
Right.
Everyone was just like, because I'd take pictures of everybody, and then I'd send it to them, I'd text them, and, a lot of guys like seeing pictures of them at work, and, and then they can show their kids, they can show their wife, they can show, their grandparents.
Well,
or
just
their
to be
parents.
clear, we have an entire company that will take pictures of you at work, and we'll post them online for you. Blackline, LTD.com.
I like the plug.
Yeah, shameless promotion. It's a cool thing to do when it's your podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So you're doing that. Guys like to see themselves.
Yeah.
That's because people like to be honored in what they're doing.
Right.
And not only like to be, they should be honored in what they're doing because they're doing meaningful work.
Yeah.
And for too long, people have not honored the tradesman and the tradeswoman. We have allowed society to say, hey, you are less important. And the fact is, that's not true. The truth of it is that we can't do what we do. We can't live the lives that we live. And we live pretty good lives. Like if you look around the world, we live pretty good lives. Even the worst here is better than the best in some places. And we live those lives because those who've gone before us, who've learned, those men who died, those horrible deaths, those Skywalkers, their deaths did not go in vain because people learned, hey, we aren't going to do it that way.
Right.
That is the one thing about safety and construction. We have made tremendous strides over the past century into being better.
Right.
And I know we all get frustrated about safety, but the fact of it is that we need to take the time to do it right because we do, Mike Rose says that safety is third. And I love this because he says, first thing is you gotta have a job. You have a job to do. Second, you need to make money. And anybody who has an electric bill or has a car payment, you understand that statement if you're paying the bill.
Right.
You need to make money. Like if I wanted to be safe, I would never leave my house and wrap myself in bubble wrap, and that's the way it would be. And third, then you need to be safe.
Right.
So, you have a job to do, you need to make money, and then you need to be safe. And that's just the reality. And so, but over the past century, we've made tremendous strides in, and I'm just like any other construction worker. I don't do it naturally always. Sometimes I get in a hurry, or I'm like, I don't need safety glasses, or I don't need gloves, or I don't need this. But every time that we don't and that we rush through things, that's when people get hurt.
Right.
Just like that foreman that said, no, we're going to continue to do the job, and men died.
Right. A lot of men.
Yeah. And that's why we can't joke around with safety. And for you guys out there that are safety guys, just don't think that you're God and that you have this ultimate power, because you're not doing the work. They still have to do the work. And so I might get some flack for saying this, but it's like, recognize what you're doing and be intentional, be intelligent about how you communicate safety. Because some guys, they really get a power trip, and it doesn't help anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Guys usually get fired because they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to tie off. I'm not going to put my glasses on if you're going to treat me like a dick.
I'm not going to do it if you treat me like a dick.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all working on a project, whether you're a safety guy, you're a supervisor, whether you're an apprentice.
Yeah.
We all need to go home safe. Let's all treat each other with respect, and you'll get respect treated back to you. It's pretty simple. I mean, blue collar always came off as grunts and, drunks, whatever you want to say. But at the end of the day, we're all human. We all want to be respected, and we all want to be treated with a certain level of respect. So
absolutely.
If a safety guy comes up to me and asks me politely, "Hey, Dru, can you put your glasses on?" Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if he says in a dickhead manner, I mean, there's been times I'm like, "Oh no, thanks, I got contacts on." I've literally said that to safety guys, and they kind of just get mad at me. But I'm like, well, if you said it politely, you would have got, if not, you're gonna get a smart ass remark.
I heard a story recently about a safety guy, and this isn't the line bashing safety guys. That's the next episode, actually. But he was. Have you seen the new helmets?
Yeah.
That people are wearing, and I
have one in my truck.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just a hard hat guy. I like my hard hat, but I know that's a new thing, and I've been on some jobs, and I heard this story about a safety guy wearing the helmet. You know how the helmets can come and they have the visor,
Right.
and that sort of stuff. And he literally is laying into this guy who wasn't wearing safety glasses, chewing him out left and right, and then realizes, oh, I don't have safety glasses on, and realizes his visor is up. And so he and this is just, what did you call it? A dick move. This is a dick move in the sense of he pulls the visor down and continues to ream the guy out for not wearing safety glasses, and he wasn't doing the very thing. We all make mistakes. We all don't think of things. We all, we need to hold one another accountable, but it's like, you don't need to be a dick about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we just go to work it's our paycheck. We enjoy what we do in the trades. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't do it. I mean, there's probably some guys that do it because that's all they can do. But at the end of the day, even they would probably tell you that they take a lot of pride in what they do. I mean, I have never met a tradesman in my life, whether you're a plumber, iron worker, crane operator, welder, that does not take pride in what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that we should take pride in what we do. Yeah. I think there's a difference between being proud of what you've done and being prideful. I read a book recently that in the book it said, you want to be hungry, humble, and smart.
Right.
And those three things, if you can apply those to your job, you will continue to ascend and grow in your career and make money and be successful. If you continue to be hungry, humble, and smart, you do those things, the sky's the limit.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, so tell me a little bit. So, you're an iron worker. You've worked in New York. You've worked in Boston. What's your favorite part about your job?
My favorite part?
Yeah.
We kind of touched on this earlier. I would say the most absolute favorite part I enjoy in ironworking is actually the connecting part, which is the guys who set the steel for the other guys to come behind, bolt it up, and then forth put deck on, weld, etc. I would just say that is in our trade, to get to do that is the most amazing thing you could ever do. And it's not for everyone, because you're out there as the pieces of steel are coming in, hoist it with a crane above your head, and then coming down, you got to grab it, put it in, walk out there, make one end, make the other end, and then come back, cut it loose.
So describe for those who are listening, being the connector, what is that job and why do you like it so much?
Well, I like it because I'm always been more of like an adrenaline junkie.
No, I couldn't tell. Anybody who watches Instagram, Dru Jacobs on Instagram.
And yeah, so you're kind of out there, and the pieces are going everywheres, and it's not to mention it's a very dangerous part of our job, and I think it's almost like a romantic love-hate beauty of doing that job. Whereas one trip, one little mess up, and you're gonna fall. Obviously nowadays we're tied off and we're safety, but there's been there's always you never know. You could fall, your lanyard could catch on a piece of steel and snap. Or
did I catch that right? Did you just compare romance to life or death?
Yeah, I did.
I'm married, so I would agree. That's accurate. But that's what makes it interesting.
That's what makes it very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like it's almost like to get to A to B, it's all on you.
Yeah.
And that's what I like that about that particular part of my job.
Yeah.
But I also like it about life. Like for me to get from where I want to go to anywheres in life, it's up to me.
Yeah.
So for me to make it home safe, for me to make sure my partner gets home, the guys on the ground, the crane operator, everybody, for me to get that job done, I know it's all in my hands, and I've always liked taking responsibility of not only others, but of my own self in my hands.
Yeah.
And that's part of that job is, other than it's exciting and it's dangerous, that's a very big part of it, but I just like that, having total control of the whole like process of being out there, being high above the street, the city, and just one wrong move and you literally could fall.
Yeah.
There's just something about that I love about it. The process.
It demands your attention, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it does.
So I've experienced that at times working on some medium voltage transformers or work. It's like I'm 6 inches away from certain death, and if I would touch that bus or I would do that, and it's like it demands my attention, and I don't think the rest of the world realizes what we do.
No.
Like I don't think they realize that's what it takes. Like you actually listen. We do everything that we can to be safe. We talked about bashing safety people earlier, which is not what we talked about. If we did, and you're listening, Dru Jacobs talked about that. Local. No, I'm just messing.
I did.
I'm just.
I did.
But you know, it demands our attention, and people do risk their lives for the buildings that we live in, the roads that we drive on, and the places that we do life. I mean,
right.
That's the truth of it.
I mean, all the trades are dangerous when you get down to it. I mean, you could be holding a flag, be a flagger in the street and get hit by a car. I mean,
well, you remember in Maryland, I think was it this past year or last year, six people died because there was a car accident on the highway, and they didn't do anything wrong. They did everything the way that they should,
right?
But stuff happens,
right?
You know, it's like that's life.
Yeah.
I mean, it costs something to make this stuff happen.
Right. And it's funny you talk about that too, because like in the trades, especially for us being in the USA, we are so safe. And I know a lot of us get a lot of flack at times, but if you go on Instagram and you watch stuff that's done overseas, and I always see in my feed cranes falling over, buildings coming down. I mean, I don't see that here. It's very rare it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very rare.
Yeah.
And usually it's because we're rushing to do something and not taking the time to do it the way we should.
Right.
I mean, almost for me in my life, that's always where it comes back to. When I'm hurrying to do something, then that's when mistakes happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I want to ruthlessly eliminate hurry from my life. That's really what I want to do.
Right.
I had a boss who years ago would say to me, I remember we were doing a job and a big wire pull, and I was running to get a tool, and he like, you know, my last name is Malott, and he's like, Malott, yelled across the job site. He said, we don't run. That's not what we do.
All right.
And he said, that communicates that something's wrong, someone's hurt, and he goes, we do our job in this amount of time. We take our time. We do our job right. And that's what you need to remember. If you're entering the trades or you're working in the trades, listen, don't hurry. Hurry never ends well, never goes well.
Right.
So, Dru, one of the things that I want to ask you, and I ask everyone this, but what is a piece of gear or a tool that you cannot live without? You know, the end of the world is coming. You have to choose one thing for the rest of your life. What is that one thing?
That one tool?
A tool or a piece of clothing, gear, whatever, that one thing.
I would say a Leatherman.
Really?
Yeah.
So this is a plug for Leatherman. Again, Dru Jacobs on Instagram.
Yeah. I would say Leatherman. A Leatherman multi, too.
Tell us why.
It's so versatile. I mean, you can do so much with a Leatherman. I mean, I've used them on high-rise construction jobs. I've used them on home project. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, I carry a Leatherman on my tool belt at work.
All right, so I'm going to push a little deeper here in this because, like, I want to hear this. You've used a Leatherman on a high-rise construction job. In what way? Opening your Amazon box that got delivered with whatever swag you're supposed to post? Like, no, seriously.
No, I mean, there's times, like, on the job, we get certain pieces of steel in.
Yeah.
And they'll have, like, little safety wires on them.
Yeah.
And usually, like, so with our setup, we carry open-end wrenches that are real big. They're called spud wrenches.
Yeah.
And you ain't really getting much done. So to have that Leatherman in your back pocket, you know, or in your pouch, just pop it off and pop the wire off. That we can take the bolts out so we can assemble it.
Wow.
I mean, they come in handy. I mean, for torch work, I've had to use them to cut the line and then resplice line back together.
We should really connect you with Leatherman. I mean, I sound like they have an ambassador thing going on here with Dru Jacobs.
And I have so many Leathermans.
Yeah, I have that problem too. So my Leatherman, I still remember I actually broke it once because it didn't do really good against stainless steel, but the Wave was my favorite. Right. What's your favorite one?
I can't remember the name of it now. It's just like the basic. It's got everything. The file. Because I don't remember. I don't know the names of them. Yeah. I just usually go grab wherever and just like, that's the one I need.
Yeah. That's I have a thing for tape measures like that. I have so many tape measures, and every time I'm in a hardware store, I like need to buy another tape measure. It's kind of a weird disease or addiction that I have, but yeah. Yeah.
I just pretty much get a basic Leatherman. I mean, because they're so handy. I mean, and a lot of people don't even realize it. I mean, especially for me, there's been times when I didn't have my Leatherman, and I'm like, I really should have had my Leatherman.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that statement, the right tool for the right job, is really real. I mean, and that's another thing with safety is, you know, if there is a right tool for the job, making sure that you use it, making sure that you have it. Because whenever oh my goodness, I could tell you story upon story of when I tried to do something without the right tool and it ended badly for me.
Oh, I've been there too.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my word. So you have a long history. You know, it's in your blood. My goodness, we started the podcast with such real intense stuff. So, you know, you went through the apprenticeship. You're an iron worker. You're posting it on Instagram. You know, your favorite thing is to be a connector. You talked about a little bit of one of the things that you said to me about that you absolutely love, and you were talking earlier about the romance of the work, which I love that you said that, because I think deep down I am a romantic at heart. I love those aspects of the work that we do as we bring things together and we bring them to life. You know, I'm an electrician.
Right.
I always say, you know, people give me shit all the time about, well, you don't build anything. But yeah, but I breathe life into the building. Like electricians breathe life
literally.
into the building. Like you can build a building with the steel, but without what the electricians do, nothing can happen in that building. Like,
Absolutely.
You know.
I mean, you were talking about it earlier with Amazon. They can't get
switchgear, yeah.
And now they have giant warehouses
that just
empty.
sit empty. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that's an important thing that I want to touch on about the trades, because, and I want to touch on this with you because different parts of the trades can be sexier than the other parts of the trades. And I just want to touch on that because we talked in the beginning about not forgetting. And I would say for some of us, it's not forgetting. You know, I lived through 9/11, and so I need to not forget. But then there are those who were born after 9/11 that haven't lived through it, and they just aren't even aware.
Yeah.
And so the same is in the trades, where it's like some of us need to not forget. Some of us aren't even aware, and we need to have our view lifted so that we can see and be like, oh my goodness. And so let's talk about that for a second. And I want to just touch on this and say, when you build a building and you're placing the ironwork, you know, you aren't breathing life into it. We talked about Amazon warehouses that are sitting empty, and there are other warehouses, but it's cooler to call them Amazon warehouses. But they're sitting empty. They don't have life. What building can an ironworker build alone?
None.
Exactly.
None.
And I think that's a big thing that I want to comment on, and I want us to talk about here a little bit. It's like in the trades, we tend to get in this adversarial relationship sometimes where it's like it's me versus you, and we can't have that.
Yeah. I noticed that in the trades. I've been on jobs and guys are kind of dicks to the laborers or the plumbers or whoever, and I'm like, we're all blue collar. We're all here to make money. We're all here to provide for our families.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a drywaller, if you're a plumber, if you're an electrician. We do not build buildings alone. We build them together.
Right.
And you know,
and speaking for us and for any of the viewers out there, who are trades and worked with ironworkers,
I'm pretty sure 3 people watch this. So you know,
like ironworkers have always been like dicks in the trade. We've always been told like, oh, these guys are dicks and stuff. You know. When in reality, everything we do gets covered up.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm an electrician. I understand that.
We build the skeleton of
yeah.
the building. I mean, when we're putting it up, it's all sexy and all that. But in reality, it's like I drive by a building, but it's like I have to look through the window guys. I got to look through all the finishers before my building. Like, obviously, the building can't go up without us. But, I mean, if you really want to make a building look nice, it's the guys who do glass. It's the guys who, all the finishers are what make the building look sexy.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you say that because as an electrician by trade, I can relate to that because my work, no one ever cares about unless you flip a light switch and it doesn't work.
Right.
You know, and all of the wire and everything is covered up. I mean, I love treatment plants, airports, and places like that where there are giant conduit racks and things like that. because I think that's beautiful.
Right.
Just like you probably think steel by itself is beautiful,
Yeah.
But those finishers, they actually, their work is the sexy thing that people see at the end. But I think sometimes that they feel diminished and like what they bring to the table isn't as important as what you do. Or well, I would like to say what I do, but nobody really thinks about the electrician. The only thing that they say about electricians is we don't know what a broom is. And I've yet to find one, so I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter, But I mean, how do we as tradespeople, as tradesmen and tradeswomen in the field, how do we honor one another and work together as a team? Like you say, ironworkers are typically, known as being dicks.
Yeah, we get that stereotype. It seems.
How do we overcome those stereotypes? And not only how do you overcome that as an ironworker, but how do the trades overcome that stereotype of we're dumb, less than, how do we overcome stereotypes in the work that we do?
That's a tough question, to be honest.
I thought
that's a very tough question.
I thought I would ask a Mohawk, Indian
for some wisdom.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it, but
where's the peace button?
I'm going to be honest. That's a very tough question because I think that personally comes down to individual.
Yeah, it does.
Because I get along with everybody, whether you're a laborer, whether you're the guy cleaning the shitters. I get along with everybody, and I treat everybody how I want to be treated.
There it is. There it is.
That's
right there.
In reality, that's how I am,
Yeah.
And I see on jobs, guys treat laborers, whatever, I'm like, if we need something from him down the line, it's better to make him an ally than an enemy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing as tradespeople that we really need to go after is like, we can't do it alone. Your job is no less important than that guy's job. His job is no more important than your job because the fact that we can't do it alone. I compare it to the human body in the sense of my thumb might not be as important or as my foot or vice versa. I don't know. But like all of it works together. And in that same way, we need to operate together. We need to work together. We need to promote together.
Right.
And we need to do those things. And you said it. We need to treat people the way that we want to be treated.
Yeah.
They call that the golden rule for a reason.
Right.
And we need to do more of that. And there is a stereotype, negative voices seem to be the loudest and get the most traction. But that doesn't mean we can't change it. It doesn't mean that we can't affect a difference in the work that we do. And I think that you're doing that, Dru. In the things that you post, dude, your stuff is just cool as shit.
Thank you.
Like I see some of your posts, and I'm an electrician. I don't do ironwork, but it's pretty cool to watch. And I've been on the jobs when it's happening.
Yeah.
Also cool when you're on the job in person. It's like you have your own front row seat to what's going on.
Right.
And, I think that we just need to continue to realize that all of us deserve a certain level of honor just because we're there on the job and we're doing the work. And no one is more important than the other because no one can operate without the other. And we as tradespeople, we really need to focus on that and work towards, this is not a shameless plug, but we need to work towards lifting the view of the skilled trades. And, Joshua Malott can't do that alone. Dru Jacobs can't do that alone. But here we are in upstate New York, sitting out in the woods, in the cold, in the snow, and we 100% can do that together.
Oh, absolutely.
When we do it together, we actually can raise that view just like when we raise a building.
Yeah. See, because and speaking to that, it's personally a thing I don't like is, especially when people go through their apprenticeship and they treat apprentices really bad.
Come on.
And treat them like shit. And I'm like,
I was an apprentice, so I know what you're talking about.
It's like and they're like, well, they have to earn their stripes, whether you're ironwork or whatever. I get that.
I've heard that exact statement.
I get that, but at the end of the day, that's your retirement.
Yeah.
That is going to be a retirement. Why wouldn't you want to treat them to be the best? That way you're building more legacy for your union or your company, whatever, if you work for a union or you don't. But I get it. There's a time and place to haze the new guys.
Yeah.
I'm no angel. I've done it. But I also pull them aside when they're trying to do something and try to teach them as well to make it easier for them.
Yeah, if we aren't mentoring the new people, we're really stupid. I mean, we really. I mean, you're touching on something that's really important to me. I believe that we need to be training up someone else to do our job because
Or no one's going to do it.
or no one's going to do it, and there's no way that you're going to move to the next job if you're not training somebody to do your job because there won't be anybody to take your place.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a part of building companies, and I couldn't be doing the work that I'm doing now had I not trained someone to do my job then.
Right.
And if you're a journeyman or you're an experienced veteran in the trades, and you're out there complaining like, well, I don't have the people. I don't have people that know what they're doing. I don't have the experience. I mean, we hear that in our line of work all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, stop complaining about it. Stop bitching about it. Get off your ass, mentor someone, train them, teach them, show them how to do your job so that you can grow the industry.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to suck it up and take the time to teach the next person.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it. I see it a lot in my trade where, especially because my generation, we're still at where there's old timers in, and then there's my generation, and then that new generation's coming in where we've all went through what that real old generation went, where we got screamed at all day, yelled at, and basically just got thrown up there and expected to know what to do up there.
Yeah.
And then nowadays, the kids are a little bit more, I guess, timid.
Yeah.
To be more politically correct.
Yeah. Oh, we're all about being politically correct on this show. Sure.
But they're a little softer than, my generation.
Yeah.
And, I tell kids all the time that come on the job, I'm just like, listen, it's good to have thick skin.
Yeah.
But also find someone who's willing to work with you.
Yeah.
And if someone isn't, just whatever, it is what it is. But we should be, as a whole, not just my trade, but as a whole, grooming and teaching the next generation.
Absolutely.
Because, like you said, no one's going to have power, no one's going to have buildings in the next 15, 20 years if we don't. I mean, and there's a time and place to haze the new guys. I'm all for it, but we really need to be teaching first, playing later.
I agree. So I got to re-say that again because that's a nugget right there. We need to be teaching first and playing later.
Right.
That is the truth of it. And if you're out there on the job and you're a welder, you're an electrician, you're a drywaller, whatever it is, you're an iron worker, it doesn't matter if you're union or you're open shop or any of that stuff. Listen, it doesn't matter. There's too much of a need out there for us to try to like silo ourselves and make it me versus you.
Right.
Like we need to be training and teaching. And there's a time for playing later.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to be about.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that we're going to be able to affect change. And that's if we do it together. Like I can't do this thing alone of lifting the view of the skilled trades. I need people like Dru. Quite frankly, Dru has much greater reach than I do in communicating what it is that we're doing and what's out there. And we need to do that together.
Oh,
you need to do your part just like in setting steel and iron. And I need to do my part in what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And if we all work together at it, we'll be able to make a difference. And I mean, here we are sitting on your property in upstate New York. You can have a good life as a tradesman. You can be satisfied. You can be fulfilled in the work that you do.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier. Even years ago, you can live a good life. You can pay your bills, and you can live well.
Yeah.
You can even do that more so now because the world is beginning to realize, oh my, if I want my toilet to flush, I need to pay for it.
Right.
And
really, like, if you really think about it, in a way, the blue collar today in 2024 is almost like that white collar. It's getting to that point where
it is.
We're the middle class. Like,
Yeah.
I've been blue collar my whole life. And I remember there was a time when blue collar was always kind of like the lowest of the, of the economic scale of income with people.
Yeah.
It's kind of reversed. I mean, I don't have college education, and I live a lot better than a lot of the, my friends who went to college and university.
Yeah.
And I mean, as you can see here on my property, I mean,
it's gorgeous, man. I absolutely love it.
Like this has all been bought by, me working blue collar money,
blue
working
collar
in the
money.
trades.
Absolutely. Well, So, I mean, you touch on something. I think it's really important, and this is not noble. This thing that I'm about to say, it is not noble, but it is the truth. It is reality. If you're going after the money and that's what drives you, then it's not going to work.
No.
Because blue collar, we talked about this a little bit earlier, and it's like, well, what's your degree, or what's your this or that? And it's like, no, can you set the iron? Can you set the steel? Then you get the job, you get paid.
Right.
Can you do the work? And the only way to do the work is just that. It is to do the work.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, and you're willing to do that, and you're willing to work hard, and I've talked about this with other people. I did a podcast with a welder and a millwrights guy, fabricator, and he made the comment. He goes, "Listen, it's hard. It's hard work, but there isn't anything worth doing that isn't hard."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the trades pay very good money, way above minimum wage, way above minimum wage.
Above minimum
Whether you're a
wage.
union or open shop.
Yeah.
Any trade pays, whether it's in the high 20s
Yeah.
to the hundreds.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
And a lot of trades don't need a fancy education.
Yeah.
Because it's all learned on site.
You learn it with your mind. You
Yeah.
learn it with your hands.
And plus, it's a skill that you're going to carry throughout your life, whether you get hurt, whether you decide to up and go into a management position or a supervisor. I mean, if that day were ever to come, you could still put a belt back on, and you still know what to do to make money.
Exactly.
Like, you can travel the whole world. You can travel the country and make a lot of money in blue collar, in the trades.
Well, and I mean, that's it right there. Like, the trades are something that no one, the government,
Government
kind
of needs us.
Yeah, they absolutely do. No one can take that away from you.
Infrastructure.
No one can take it away from you. Yeah, absolutely. Dru, I absolutely just love talking with you. We could sit here and talk probably deep into the afternoon. But as we're at this point in the podcast, I just want to ask you, like, I think mistakes are important. And, we talked about, being humble, hungry, and smart. And so I'm going to ask you two questions here as we come to a close. I'm going to ask you, what is a mistake that you've done that you've learned from? And you can always pass. And then what is a motivation to those who are out there working, to those who might be interested in this? But so first, Dru, can you share with us a mistake, something that you've done that you've learned from, that we can pass on to whoever might be listening, that they might be able to learn from a mistake that you've made?
Well, I'm going to kind of change it up.
That's good.
Because I've never had a mistake that I thought was a mistake.
Okay, you got to tell me more.
So everything I've done in my life that was supposedly by definition a mistake, I find is a blessing.
Okay.
So as we were talking about a little bit earlier before the podcast started, I did suffer from addiction, which a lot of blue collar guys do. I mean, it's kind of our bread and butter, when it comes to pain management, caffeine, whatever it may be. But me going into that path in life was one of the greatest failures, but blessings of my life, because it ultimately made me realize that that's not who I want to be.
Oh, come on.
And the man I want to be can learn from this.
Yeah.
And it took years. I mean, I'm 11 years sober, but I mean, I started young, but at the same time, like, it took a lot of work to get me to where I am today.
Yeah.
And I mean, those pain pills were no joke, but I don't look at it as a failure.
Right.
Because it kind of set me up for everything I have today.
I think that's a really insightful statement. And if you're listening, I think it's really important for you to listen to the words of that statement. It is only a mistake or a failure, and I love what you did. I love how you turned it there. It is only a mistake or a failure if you let it end with that.
Right.
You can take it and turn it into something that you learn from and continue to move on with. And if we don't quit, if we continue to press into it, then it's not a failure. It's not a mistake.
Right.
And those things, and I've had, things in my life that were mistakes and failures, and they've shown me what I don't want and what I don't want to be. And honestly, I continue to struggle through those things in life, and it's like, but I know this is not what I want, and I'm going to go after that instead. Right. Absolutely. Right. That's really good, man.
Because Thanks. You're not your past.
Come on.
And every failure is a very big lesson if you let it be a lesson.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every failure is a lesson if you allow it to be a lesson.
Right.
That's good, Dru.
Because that's when I knew my life changed, was when I stopped looking at I'm a failure and I'm a loser to no, you're not a loser.
Yeah.
You need to learn from this. What can you do better?
Yeah.
So when the situation does happen again, you can present yourself stronger to handle the situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in closing here, as we wrap up the podcast, and not just because my feet are icicles, but as we wrap up the podcast, what is your motivation, whether it's for the, and I want to be careful because I think that we always talk about the next generation, but like when I was an apprentice, I remember I was 18 and I was an apprentice to be an electrician, and there was a guy sitting next to me in class that was 40 years old, starting his life over. And so what is your motivation for anyone who is in the trades or wants to go in the trades? What would you, this is your opportunity, Dru, what would you say to them as they're listening right now?
I mean, if you're in a job if you're in a corporate job, whether you're white collar, whether you're working as a barista, whatever it is, if you're looking for a big change in life, obviously first, it is a hard job. Whether you go into plumbing, electrical, ironwork, millwright, etc. They're all physically hard, demanding jobs.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
The caveat to that is you can travel.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you can see the country and the world.
Yeah.
If you're willing to. So my message to anyone out there would be, if you're unhappy with your current job and you are thinking of going into the trades, see, I'm a union iron worker, so what I would say to anyone that's looking to be a welder or anything would be, look up your nearest union hall, whether it's a plumber, laborer, electrician, iron worker. Get information from all of them, operators, and they're all gonna welcome everyone to give you information on it.
Yeah,
and then see which one you feel you might fit in the best, because it's kind of like clicks. I mean, everyone has their own thing. You might be into electrical, you might be into cranes and heavy machinery, you might be into welding. I mean, they're all great, amazing jobs. And the good thing about social media and YouTube and all that is there's so many good videos out there that are teaching how to kind of get a little quick behind the scenes look at the trades. The trades ain't really that bad. I mean, I don't know why people think they're that bad. Are they hard in the winter when it's cold? Yeah. Is it hot in the summer? Yeah. But when I get a paycheck, I'm like, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I've met a lot of amazing people all over the country, all over Canada, all over the world that, through the trades.
Yeah.
It's a very amazing job. And, I've actually, you're saying I'm an iron worker now. I've actually been talking to the operators now that I have you on right now, and I might be switching over to the operators. I don't know yet. It's not official. Don't hold me to it, but I have been. It's
not official, but we're going to publish it all over the internet.
I will. But I have been talking to my recently to the operators here up in upstate New York, so I can kind of be a little bit closer to home because, as you know, I have to travel to Boston, New York City, all over for work. So I've been trying to look for something a little closer to
That's
home.
the awesome thing about a trade is you can take it with you wherever you go. You can travel the world, like you said, or you can, and you have to make adjustments.
Absolutely.
Like, you can make more money in Boston and New York City than you can make in the middle of nowhere. But when you have a trade, you have something that's marketable that people need and that they want.
Right.
And so that's the thing that no one can take from you.
Exactly.
And so that's really important.
So back to your thing, I might be doing a little, looking for a new outlook in life too, looking for a new job. because
Well,
I might be going into the operators.
Well, and that's the other cool thing is you can always be learning and continuing to grow in what you're
Right.
doing. I would also just say whether union, non-union, whatever it is, if
Whatever
you're
it is.
interested in the trades, and again, shameless plug here, but blacklineltd.com. We would
absolutely.
love to promote you and put you and show you, connect you. I mean, that's all it is. You know, Dru and I grew up with blue collar families, and so it wasn't we didn't email anybody or Google it. It was just, hey, Uncle Joe, I want to do this,
Right.
and he connected me with the right person, or vice versa.
Right.
And let us be your uncle or your aunt or whoever it is that you need
Absolutely.
to bring you into the blue collar world, because that's what we want to do, and we want to continue to lift the view of the skilled trades. So, as you're listening here, remember, we want you to step up to the line and lift the view of the skilled trades. Dru, thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you next time. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I
my
said
feet
that.
were getting
My
cold.
feet are cold.
My feet were getting cold too.
Oh my gosh. I was like, this has got to be over.
I was like, that's why I kept switching.